Hello, everybody. This is Nicole Johnson-Starr with the PTSD Retreat Radio Talk Show. We are in this series, The Six Senses of PTSD. We're on the first part, taste and food, how it affects our PTSD. And I'm here with Pam Killeen. Thank you so much for being here, Pam. I am so grateful to see you because we did have a fire here yesterday. So I have you to smoke, to smell, but the computer and everything else is still here, so I'm really grateful to see you.
That's nice to see you too. I'm glad you're safe.
Yes, thank you. I can have my wild hair and wrap in my blanket. Yes. By the way, proof, I am sitting here wrapped in a blanket because it's a little chilly because we no longer have the heat upstairs. So, but it's okay because I have my upstairs. I'm happy. So how are you?
I'm fantastic. I had a really busy week. I don't know if you had a chance to see the presentation
on the 17th.
On copper and
dental.
And this one was on the dental health with the Healthy Mouth World Summit. And so I have been absolutely swamped with people asking me about this. What is this copper? How does it affect me? Where do I get the copper? Why does it affect my teeth? And of course, then we get into the fact that it affects people's brains and moods and hormones and so on.
Just everything. Wow.
It's such a ubiquitous problem today. It's known as the greatest scourge on society today is this copper toxicity problem. And it's not as simple to say, well, if I have copper toxicity, all I need to do is take zinc and I'll get rid of the copper. And unfortunately, I would be the first in line if that would work. But it's not going to work. I've never heard of anybody where it's been a success, and simply because minerals have a very intimate relationship with other minerals, and because of their molecular size and weight. So if you're supplementing with any kind of mineral, you risk creating a domino effect in the body and offsetting other minerals. And so this is unfortunately why I'm such a critic of things like vaccines as well, is because of the mercury and the aluminum that are in these vaccines, and they come into the body, and what are they going to do? They're going to displace the healthy minerals and throw them out of balance. It's just pure basic biochemistry. A 10-year-old child could understand it, but unfortunately they're overexposing us to metals at so many different levels. I just mentioned vaccines, but the city water supply, for example.
There have been articles on that.
Pardon?
I said there's been so many articles about city water because it's just so bad. I'm so grateful that I'm out in the rural area, and even still, we still have our well checked, just to be on the safe side. So tell me more.
I still haven't seen anybody on well water who's done very well. It's usually when people are on well water, they're overexposed to things like manganese, iron, and aluminum. I have yet to see anybody on well water. In fact, I just did a test of somebody from the prairies, and he went to a water depot in the city that he lived in, and it was a reverse osmosis system that they were using to filter out any potential bad stuff in the well that they were using as the source. And I did his first hair analysis. I could see he was contaminated with manganese, iron, and aluminum. And then he worked very hard. This is a young man. He worked on the oil rigs out west as well. That he predominantly was raised on this water. And when I work with people and I do their hair analysis and they're on my program, and it's a very strict program, I'm working on stirring up that hornet's nest of excess metals, whether it's manganese, iron, aluminum, copper, what have you. But it's great that we can stir up the metals, but they have to come out. And he worked very hard for 3 months, and from one test to the other, it was night and day.
Well, you know what? It's interesting. Folks, if you have not heard about our program, last week there was nothing else but pretty much Pam got to have a monologue where she got to share everything about her program. So I really encourage you to go back to last week's, last Friday, and listen to us at 8 p.m. the 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time show, because you'll hear a lot about our program, and it really only touched the tip of the iceberg. If you want to know more, I'm going to go ahead and put a plug in for you, Pam, right now, because it really deserves to be put out there. For those of you who are listening, please go to pamkilleen.com. She has a plethora times infinity and beyond, if I can borrow Buzz Lightyear words. You really deserve to go there because there's a lot of information. She has all her audios, recordings on there. And you deserve to contact her. Now, be aware, her system is not a quick fix. It took us all of our life to destroy our system and get it out of balance. It's not going to be fixed by overnight like a normal pill. And a normal pill has a lot of negative side effects. So, I'll take the time, please, for the longer, the longer positive effects. So, Pam, please continue to tell us more. And can you go back about how important it is, because because this is all about PTSD for us. Tell us how important it is about getting our body in balance when discussing PTSD, TBI, and other invisible injuries that most people can't see.
Right. Well, I will tell you that I think one of the foremost researchers in the field of stress is going to be Dr. Hans Selye. S-E-L-Y-E, Dr. Hans Selye. He was a researcher here in Canada at McGill University. And although his work is quite complex, I studied the work of Dr. Paul Eck, who's a biochemist, and synthesized Dr. Selye's research into something that is understandable for the layperson. Otherwise, I would never understand it myself. So he simplified it, which is quite miraculous feat in and of itself. But essentially, we're not designed for a lot of stress. Humans, as we evolved, we might have worked about 17 hours a week while we were hunter-gatherers. And keep in mind, this is over 99% of our human history. When we were hunter-gatherers, when we invented agriculture 10,000 years ago, that's when life got more stressful. It was harder to be a farmer than it was to be a hunter-gatherer, ironically enough.
Isn't that interesting that now we have the same thing happening? It's harder to be a farmer than to be the commercial consumer.
Yeah. So at any rate, our adrenal glands are supposed to be in a state of resting and digesting. That is the normal, healthy, parasympathetic state. And unfortunately today, in our fast new world where we have far too much stimuli, more stimuli than we would have had as hunter-gatherers, more risks even. I mean, I know we lived a risky life when we were hunter-gatherers, but it's like here today, but we were protected, we were protected in our tribes. And that made us feel very safe and secure and calm. And yes, there were always, harsh times and so on and so forth. But today, it's like almost every day there's some sort of negativity coming at us and a lot of overall stress. But when you're hit with some severe stress, some traumatic stress, what this does is the two minerals, and this can be chronic stress as well, and the stress isn't just necessarily emotional stress, it can be environmental stress or nutritional stress. So it could be any one of all three of those stressors: environmental, emotional, or nutritional. So, but when somebody is hit with an acute stress, a trauma, what happens is the minerals, the first two minerals that are going to be affected are going to be the sodium and the potassium. And this is simply in response to the adrenals not knowing this new feeling. Like, it's just like, wow, we're not supposed to be feeling these feelings, right? And so it throws off the adrenal glands. And in so doing, it throws off the minerals.
So just so you guys realize just how important this statement is, every person in the United States, what am I saying? Any and every person in this world and wherever else deals with trauma. We have, I love Anita Bain's way of saying it, everyone has big T and little t traumas, and we store them up in our body. So what you're telling me is that every single time we experience this stress, we're just throwing our bodies out of whack.
That's right.
To be a very layman.
But what Mother Nature did is she said, we want humans to survive stress. We may feel like crap when we're doing that. You
brought this up. I'm glad you're saying this again, because you brought this up last week. Say it again. Go for it.
Yeah. I mean, if you think about it, common sense here. I don't know if you have any children, but if you know anybody who has had children,
I do.
Why would any woman have another child after giving birth one time?
Especially if
traumatic.
they're married.
Right?
Yes, it's extremely. I mean, I had my daughter, and I would never want to go through the birthing process again. For all you folks listening, one is a perfect number, especially when married, because you don't really have just one kid. You have one kid and a husband, so you have two kids. So, no comments further. I love my husband.
What happens with women, right, is They have a traumatic experience, they give birth, they feel joy, and suddenly they forget the trauma. So humans are designed to surpass the stress. We're supposed to surpass the stress in order to live on. And so, I mean, if we collapsed at every stressful situation, where would we be today? We wouldn't have survived as a species.
We wouldn't be here.
Mother Nature wanted us to survive stress. So, but physiologically, biochemically, what happens is the sodium and the potassium are going to be adversely affected. So hence, when you are bombarded with an acute stress, you don't feel well, you should be resting and recovering from that stress. But we're not allowing for that recovery time. And then on top of that, we don't have the nutrition to support the nervous system.
So all those individuals, now I'm working to get my body back in shape. And I am pushing my body. I want to drop the weight. You know, I was at 266. I'm now down at 200. And I don't care about stress. So I'm going to go run because that's my way of dealing with stress. What do you say to that? I know you've brought it up before, and I want you to bring it up again. By the way, I do know the answer, folks, but I want you to hear it.
That's the sign of a good investigative reporter, by the way. When you ask a question, you know the answer. Well, what happens with any kind of a stimulant, whether it's strenuous exercise, whether it's caffeine, sugar, whatever drug may be of a person's choice, what you're trying to do after all of this stress is your sodium and potassium collapses. And so to feel better, instead of resting, we're not doing that, by the way, but if we were, we could recover from the stress and get the sodium and the potassium back to normal. But because we don't know this information, we want to feel better. We go and we might start drinking more coffee or eating more sugar, or we might need to go jogging to bring that sodium back up so we feel some energy for a little while during the course of the day. But the trouble with that pattern is as you're doing this stimulating activity or substance, at the same time you're weakening the adrenal glands all over again and adversely affecting the sodium and the potassium that much more.
So for those individuals that become adrenaline junkies, so to be, that's what I'm hearing you're describing an adrenaline junkie. So what we're doing is every time we're amping up the system, we're actually damaging the system. It's just like taking a truck or a sports vehicle.
Robbing Peter to pay Paul kind of thing.
Exactly. That's what I was just about to describe, but hers is better. It's faster. But exactly what you're saying, you know. So let me tell you though, there's some other minerals that get affected by this. You see, so the sodium and the potassium. This is crucial in terms of studying biochemistry, mood, behavior, etc. Okay, so once that sodium and the potassium go out of kilter, Mother Nature said, you know, we want humans to survive, so we need a backup plan for when the sodium and the potassium go out of kilter, and that backup plan is the calcium and the magnesium. And then as the sodium and potassium has crashed, calcium and magnesium start to rise. On a chart, when I do a hair test, this basically the calcium and the magnesium, in many cases, is off the page. And so keep in mind that your cells are sitting in a solution, and that solution, for you to be healthy, that solution must be a combination of minerals in their correct ratios. The four most important minerals being calcium, magnesium, sodium, and potassium. And these minerals are responsible for all sorts of physiological activities, whether it has to do with your digestion, your neurotransmitters, your hormones. I mean, people underestimate how powerful minerals are, but they really have a huge impact on your mood. So as this calcium and magnesium become, let's just say, toxic, because for all intents and purposes that's what's happening, is the calcium is rising and magnesium is rising to the point where it's toxic, and now Mother Nature says, we have another red alarm going off here, because with all this calcium and magnesium rising, this is going to kill the host. And we don't want that, because we want humans to survive. We want them to be resilient. So what happens is as people have a toxicity in what would be healthy minerals like calcium and magnesium, you also at the same time have what you would call a deficiency, that the calcium and the magnesium become bio-unavailable. And this is crucial. What I just said is crucial when it comes to stress and reacting to stress and our ability to handle stress. Because once calcium and the magnesium become bio-unavailable, you're constantly in this state of worrying. Your brain is spinning out of control. You go to bed at night, your brain can't shut down. You lie awake. If you're lucky, if you can fall asleep and stay asleep, and you never feel calm, peace, or joy internally. And let me just say,
that as I work with people and I help them regulate their sodium, potassium, calcium, magnesium, after several months of working with me, and you see this gradual conversion going on from somebody who is completely stressed, using drugs potentially, to somebody over several months where they feel this inner sense of calm and peace and joy like they've never felt before in their lives. So I get to see this wonderful transition occur with people who start off with me basket cases, and they end up full of joy and peace and calm.
Okay, so folks, what you're hearing basically is without medication. No, let me go ahead and do it again. I always forget to do this with you, Pam. Folks, if you're considering doing this program, please do not go cold turkey on your meds. Pam works very strictly within, she works with you and with your doctor, so you guys get to work together when you make the change in your biochemistry. And this is a process that takes over 2 years, correct, Pam?
Yeah, my program takes an average of 2 years, and it's really dependent on how the age of the individual when they start with me, how sick they are when they start with me, and it depends on their level of compliance as well.
Okay, so as you guys can hear, this is not a process. It's a long drawn out process. So don't just go cold turkey on your meds. No matter what you decide to do, if you decide to make a change in your lifestyle, a change in your medication, a change in your diet even, please go to your medical and mental health and your nutritional professional providers. The reason I say this is because you deserve to have the most educated foundation when you make your decision. It is not up to anyone else to make this decision for you, but they are there. You actually pay them. Hello, you're paying for your insurance, you're paying them, co-pays, etc. To give you that opinion. Take it. Talk to your doctors before making any decision that changes your
And I think what
son.
we need to do, at a grassroots level, is let doctors who are writing prescriptions know that there is a better way, that there is another way. Right now, people, I think, are feeling quite confined because they think there is only one way, and that is talk therapy and medications, a combination of one or both.
Yes.
I see a place for both of them, but I don't see how in the long run they're going to get somebody thinking or feeling as if they're running on all 8 cylinders.
Yeah,
that's where I step in.
Important. It is so important to make sure that there's balance between all of it, because some individuals do get to use medication, but that's where they're at. But personally, we started out without meds in the beginning, and we did just fine. Though I think it's my job, by the way. I'm going to Florida to talk about other alternatives that are out there, and I get to tell you, Pam, you're going to be mentioned, because getting the biochemistry in balance is going to be, in my mind, so you folks be aware, this is a personal opinion. There is your official warning. Getting our biochemistry in balance is going to serve us not only for PTSD or for our any mental, physical, difficulties that we're challenged with. It's to me, it's going to assist us our whole lives through. It's going to make us happier, healthier, and goodness gracious, by the way, let's go ahead. I'm going to go there. Wealthier. You know why? Because you're not paying to constantly go to the doctors. You're not paying for meds. My uncle pays over $400 a month for his medications.
And here's the thing is, when I found this lab, I called the lab. I was doing my due diligence. And one of the first things they told me was that their goal was to get people off supplements. I almost fell out of my chair because they said there isn't a single company on this planet that would say that. So they caught my interest right away, because I've been in the natural health industry for a long, long time. And I said, whatever is going on with this company, number one, they have integrity, and number two, whatever they have must work, or why would they tell me that? And, and then what I found out is that to do what I do as a clinician, there's no possible way I can make a lot of money doing this work. My initial test is $200. Retests are $150. We do the retest every 3 to 4 months, but it's to monitor people's changes in their biochemistry, because if we don't, and the supplements will no longer work. We have to constantly stay on top of the changes in the biochemistry so that the supplements will match accordingly. And then the supplements on average cost $100 a month. And that's an average. So some of my clients who are on very limited budgets, a lot of my clients are disabled, so they don't have money.
Social Security.
Exactly. So they don't have money, but they still can afford to do this program. So I can sleep at night. And when I was disabled throughout pretty much all of my 20s and 30s, I made a pact to myself that I was going to, come hell or high water, I was going to find a solution for people who were, disabled psychologically. In my case, I had debilitating chronic fatigue, fibromyalgia, multiple chemical sensitivities, and I was ADD as well.
That sounds pretty traumatizing to the body and mind.
I was very toxic. I was dealing with deficiencies, toxicities, imbalances in my minerals, adrenal, thyroid, blood sugar imbalances, and so on. But back then, I didn't know anything about biochemistry. If I had what I have now, back when I collapsed in the 80s, I wouldn't have lost my 20s and 30s.
Isn't there a song, If I Had Known Then What I Know Now? It's a country song. It's a really good song. If I find it, folks, I'll play it for you. But, I mean, there's hindsight is 20/20, but I will say this. You are not only taking the hindsight, you're taking and going, you know what, that's okay, I've got it now. The rest of my life has changed, and it's not just for me. You're making a conscious effort and a commitment to assist so many other people. You have clients all over the world. So people deserve to know that they're not just coming to you, and they don't have to come to, you guys do not have to go to Ontario, Canada, but if you do, you'll have a wonderful trip.
My office here, yeah.
You will be able to, you can talk to her via Skype. She's very proficient at Skype. I can tell you because we do this every week. And she's very comfortable with working with wherever you are in whatever position that you're in. Now, I'm going to tell you this because she's brought it up, and I know it to be for a fact. For those with PTSD, you deserve to recognize you get as much out of it as you put into it. You get to be committed to your process, whatever it is that you're choosing to do, whether that be counseling, whether that be using back to nature or meditation, whatever it is you're doing, or going to Pam, you get to be committed and follow through. And Pam, you've said this before, you've had people that have not stuck to it as much, and even though they had some positive results, it still wasn't as good as those who had been completely true and faithful.
Yeah. No, I have people I would call tire kickers, and I warn them about how difficult this program is, how difficult the detoxification
yes,
process
Sergeant Pam.
is. And they want to believe, they hear me, but they don't really hear me. They don't really understand what they're in for when they do this program. Because I tell everybody, this is a very difficult program to do. I would say on a scale of 1 to 10, it's a 10 out of 10 in terms of its degree of difficulty.
And by the way, folks, you deserve to know, her nickname is Sergeant Pam for a reason. She has earned the title Sergeant Pam. She is a taskmaster. You know what I mean. Sergeant Pam is so much easier than taskmaster.
I want my clients better yesterday. That's what I want. And so when I see somebody dilly-dallying, and I say, we talked about this last week, I think, but there's a 5-prong approach. So testing, retesting, and using the appropriate supplements is one prong of the program. Resting is another prong. The eating 3 square meals a day, another prong. But the last 2 prongs include the near-infrared sauna, not a far infrared, not a dry sauna, not a steam sauna. It must be what's known as a near-infrared sauna, and coffee enemas. And, when people think they can chintz on the saunas and the coffee enemas, they're just chintzing themselves. They're just sabotaging their own progress, because when people do all 5 prongs of this program, they're the ones who get the best results fastest. And now I do see varying degrees of detoxification, where people, when the copper is coming out, when the lead is coming out, when the mercury is coming out, I see some horrible reactions in individuals. But I try and prepare everybody for that.
By the way, just so you guys know, I am going to do this program. My husband gets to do it with me. He's still doing the research on it. But I'm telling you guys, even I, who I'm very, very open-minded, she's already laughing. You guys can't see her face, but she's already laughing on the screen. Even I freaked. She already knows where I'm going. I freaked out when she's mentioned coffee enemas. Coffee goes in the mouth, and it brings up... It does not go in other places. That is an exit only. I don't care what your orientation... It doesn't matter. I'm talking about, when it comes to coffee, coffee goes in the mouth. And when she said this, she's like, she didn't even give me a break. Here we are on the air, and she's like, no. It gets to happen. And she
honestly, you will kick yourself if you don't do the coffee enemas. And besides that, when people start doing the coffee enemas, usually and there's some exceptions, but usually people will say to me, I wish I had known about coffee enemas 10, 20, 30, 40 years ago.
Okay,
That's
see?
how much better they feel.
So I promise to, on Two Wackos and Key Lime Pie, when Kevin and I are talking about things, I will bring this up during that conversation because I promise I will be graphic. I will tell you exactly what I experienced, and I will share that with you guys. But did I lose you, Pam?
I think our connection's a little weak.
Okay.
No, I'm here. It's just a little weak connection, so I got rid of the video for a second.
That makes sense. I am now hearing myself. Hold on a second. Okay, so when we get to that point where I am actually going to, just a second, when we get to that point and I am sharing all this, I promise to be very open with you guys and tell you exactly what it is that I experience, and Kevin will tear it up and you guys will hear everything. But it's not just that part. With the PTSD retreat, you guys know that we go back to basics, and rest is so important. Pam, I really want you to hit on why rest is so important for the last couple minutes of this segment.
Right, because you see, one of the jobs of the adrenal glands is to kick out excess metals in the body. And so if you're busy jogging, if you're busy as a person, during the course of the day, with your career, your family, hobbies, volunteer work, I mean, these adrenals are just not going to be in that parasympathetic mode, this relaxation mode that we're really supposed to be in. And so when the adrenals are being distracted, when they're being overly used, then they don't have the energy to focus on kicking out the excess metals. So during, your first 10 years of your life, up until about 20, your cup isn't necessarily terribly full, right? This accumulation of metals occurs over years and years and years. And that's why we mentioned earlier, that this program does take 2 years, because your biochemistry did not go awry overnight. This took many, many years for your cup to get full. So we need a lot of care and attention in order to undo this damage, to undo this biochemical mess. And to do that, we have to retrain those adrenal glands to be in that parasympathetic state. But when they're so incredibly stressed, because of all this interpollution of this buildup of toxic metals, this isn't allowing the adrenals to be in a parasympathetic state either. So even that much more awareness is necessary to calm down your nervous system. So people on my program are instructed to find what they like to do to relax, whether it's watching a comedy movie, whether it's meditation, prayer, reading a good book. Most of my clients can't read because they don't have an attention span, but they have to find something that helps them relax.
Now, you've actually restricted individuals from exercising.
No cardio at all is allowed on the program. Those adrenals you need to imagine that your adrenal glands are in a cast, and so they're broken, like a broken arm or a broken leg, and they need to be in a state of relaxation as often as possible. And that's difficult to do when I'm working with people who are workaholics, for example, or exercise addicts. Right?
I don't know anything about that.
Because what they're trying to do is overdo it to push up that sodium and potassium, right? So they feel some energy, but internally they feel like crap, essentially, right? Mm-hmm. So it's all tried to compensate for that poor energy, for essentially for the batteries to be on empty, right?
Yes. Wow. Folks, I'm so sorry. We're getting a feedback, so I'm going to hit mute on this, Pam, so when I'm done, I'll unmute it. It's amazing just how much we are injured. I love when my alarm tells me, hey, I've got a radio show. It's just it's so amazing how much we unknowingly injure ourselves. I didn't realize just how easy it is, Pam, and you've made it very clear that a lot of us are doing this without even knowing.
Right, and we hear things that are being called healthy, and I was a victim of this for many, many years because I thought a vegetarian diet was healthy. And in hindsight now, I look back and I see how I had been duped. I know all the propaganda like the back of my hand. I know what I believed, and then when I actually did a little digging, I realized that none of what I was told was true. Same thing with exercise. You know, what we're being told about exercise is really, for the most part, it's not true. You know, when we were hunter-gatherers for 99% of our human history, if we ran, it was to eat or avoid getting eaten. So we only exerted ourselves for maybe 2 to 3 minutes at a time. So our adrenal glands are not designed for, you know, pushing out all sorts of stress hormones like adrenaline, for example. And you know, unfortunately, when that happens, down go your chilling hormones, right? So your sex hormones, for example, will go down. You know, your DHEA, your pregnenolone, your estrogen, your progesterone, your testosterone, all of these sex hormones go down as your body is just focusing on running away from a lion, right? So there goes your libido, your digestion is compromised, you know, all sorts of things shut down because your entire attention, your body's internal attention is put on stress. So if people are running, you know, marathons or whatever, if they know what they're doing and they're healthy enough to be doing it in the first place, they really need to do a lot of relaxation after they overexert themselves like that. But I don't see people with that kind of awareness to do that. And well, I wouldn't recommend it in the first place.
I will say this, if any one of you guys are runners, and if you're a regular runner, because I used to run things, I'm going to run another marathon myself. It's going to be my first marathon. I've done half marathons and 10 milers. But you deserve to go to active.com because they encourage that rest following marathons. It's like 2 weeks of rest. You're not running, you're not going out and going crazy, you're actually taking a break. So I just had to throw that in there because, Pam, that's so correct.
Yeah, but it's relative to each individual. I just know that if people don't have the right biochemistry, it's really not wise to do that kind of exercise. So my clients only are allowed to do things like yoga, Pilates, Tai Chi, Qigong, deep breathing. You know, if they go for a walk, they're not allowed to get their heart rate up, so it can only be a light walk for maybe 30 minutes every other day. So it's really very, very restrictive, the program that I do.
That sounds so painful, because I like that invigorating, you know, push to the system. I like the adrenaline. So, by the way, we're doing a retreat with the all veterans parachute team in 2 weeks, and we're going skydiving. I am so looking forward to this.
Good. Well, it's nice to have the things to look forward to. Definitely. Just try not to get your heart rate up too high. No, I mean, I was an over-exercise. I play tennis, right? But I won't overdo it when I play tennis. And I used to play competitive as a junior, and I still play a fairly decent game. But, you know, I play doubles. I try and stay away from singles because it's a little harder on my adrenal glands, right? Mm-hmm. And I just love playing doubles. It's a great game. But you're not going to catch me. What I used to do is go out jogging and do laps in the pool and all sorts of strenuous exercise, and you just won't catch me doing that now. But I had to learn the hard way. And it's the same thing with vegetarians. I say that about vegetarians. Vegetarians have to learn the hard way that it's not a healthy diet. So the vast majority of my clients, I think I mentioned this before on the show, but you know, the vast majority of my clients have been vegetarians. I won't take clients who are vegetarians because I know I won't be able to help them get well.
Wow. So folks, keep that in mind. And as you're thinking about that and you're looking at this, really deserve to look at whether or not you're getting what you need in your diet. And even if you decide not to use Pam's program, it would probably serve you to go, serve you very greatly. I know it's going to serve you, but it would probably serve you greatly to actually talk to a nutritionist and talk to one that is informed, not just any nutritionist, because as Pam has said before, not every nutritionist is aware of, you know, what she's teaching about biochemistry, and it's something that's building, but it's a slow process. Would that be an accurate statement, Pam?
Right, but here's something I want people to keep in mind when they're hearing nutritional information, because to eat healthy today is a very simple thing to do, especially if you have local farms where you can get pasture-raised animal foods. It's not difficult to eat well. What is interfering with our ability to eat well is the nutritional misinformation that's out there. So when you hear nutritional misinformation, what you need to do is you need to take a step back in a state of disbelief. That's to protect yourself, okay? And what you have to do is ask yourself these 5 questions. Is this nutritional information proving to me that couples can be fertile, that babies will be healthy, that there will be no chronic disease or mental disorders in society, that the aging are going to age gracefully, and that as senior citizens that they will still be productive members of society? So you have to ask yourself all of those questions and then say, does this nutritional information prove to me historically through multi-generations that this will be healthy for me? So when I teach the work of Dr. Weston A. Price, if you go to YouTube and you look at any nutrition seminars given by Sally Fallon, if you just go into YouTube and type in her name, Sally Fallon, you watch her nutrition seminars. That's free, and it's the best information you're going to find on nutrition, bar none. If you happen to have a nutritionist who is trained in the work of Dr. Weston A. Price, that would be fine. But quite honestly, the information is free on YouTube through her nutrition seminars, or even on the Weston A. Price Foundation's website, which is westonaprice.org. And then on what I try to do on my site is I do a lot of radio shows to back up the work of Weston Price. So I put those radio shows on my multimedia page just at pamkilleen.com. Secondarily, to help my clients in particular, I on my homepage have links with regards to menu and meal ideas. So people get an idea of what a meal, what 3 Square Meals really is. The focus of calories needs to be on animal fat. Certainly, if people are of European descent, for example, 70% of their calories should be coming from animal fat. And this is what will best support the hormones, best support the adrenal glands, best support the brain. So this low-fat diet we have been following now for 10, 20, 30, 40 years has made us essentially structurally unsound. We're falling apart at the seams because we're not getting the raw materials that our body needs to run on properly. So in the history of mankind, we've never eaten a low-fat diet. We've never suffered with fat phobia or cholesterol phobia. And ever since we've developed these food phobias over the last 30, 40 years, of course, we have been faithfully listening to entities like the USDA, here in Canada, Health Canada, as we have been reducing our consumption of things like red meat, eggs, butter, and so on. We're sicker, fatter, and more mentally unstable than ever before in the history of mankind. So clearly these foods never joined the dark side. They were never bad for us.
I love how you tell us that it is never part of the backside, the dark side, because it just makes me think of Star Wars and use the Force, folks. The Force, in this case, is think for yourself. I mean, what she's telling you here is not too difficult. You're just questioning everything. I always tell you, do your own research, question everything. You know, just because you hear it here or just because, you hear it from a doctor does not mean it's correct. I mean, let's go back to history. They were using leeches to bleed us out at one time. This is a medical practice. Okay, folks, trust yourself. Do your own research. Work together to compile research. The more you know, the better it is for you, no matter what you're dealing with, no matter where you're coming from. And this goes for anyone who doesn't, you may say, well, I'm healthy, it's my husband that's dealing with these things. You know what? If your husband's dealing with things, guess what? You're dealing with things. Because it's traumatizing to the family member to watch other family members go through trauma. And so I challenge you all to please get yourself checked out, even if you're not using Pam, though Pam is an expert in this. She's been doing it for years and years. She knows what she's talked about, and I will tell you this, she has done the trial and error herself. She will save you a ton of time and money, but which is why I've looked at other individuals, and I've been reading. Urian sent me a plethora of information. Oh my gosh. And I have been reading and seeking out information. And Pam has been very, very good about putting things out there so you can actually do your research yourself. I encourage you to do your research. This is your body, it is your mind, and it is your injury. you deserve to know how to care best for yourself. Sorry, Pam, I had to go there.
No, that's all great. It's a confusing world out there. There's so much information. It's almost like information overload.
So much misinformation.
And misinformation is the dangerous side. So I tell people, I have people, it takes them a year before they're ready to do my program, because they're going out, they're trying all the remedy approaches, and then they wear themselves out. They exhaust all these options, and then they're ready for Sergeant Pam, What I do is you have to surrender. There's no question you have to surrender to this program, because there's a whole different way to look at health.
Yes. There are so many different things out there, folks, and I'm just going to tell you this. There's, as Pam has said and as Avaya said, there's a lot of misinformation out there. And this is one of the cool things, I'm a researcher, I love doing research. I have ever since I was a kid, though I don't think it's really cool. It's actually rather boring a lot of the time, but when it's cool, it's cool. But there's a lot of information out there. What I challenge you to do is get away from mainstream. Do not go off of what you hear on TV. Please. Please don't go off what you hear on TV. And don't go off what you see in the news. Again, please don't do that. That is just an endless cycle of insanity. But go to, look for those older texts. If it's something that was happening hundreds and hundreds of years ago and is still happening, use the test of history. Just like Pam has said, challenge everything. If it was around back then and it's still around, it's like, well, I was about to use clothing, but we won't go there because fashion sucks. It changes way too often for you to keep up. But it is one of those things, it's like old buildings, they stand the test of time. Building blocks, knowledge are building blocks, and knowledge is power. The more knowledge you have, the more control you have over what is controlling you. Let me go ahead and say that one more time. The more knowledge you have, the more power you have over what is controlling you. So, you have control. You have the control. And Pam has been really pushing this. Pam, you've been doing this now for quite a number of weeks. How many weeks has it been?
I think I've been on your show about 4 weeks now, hasn't it?
Wow, time flies. And I'm just going to say this, Pam, you have been so amazing, and I'm so grateful for you for sharing all this information. And we're coming down the last 30 seconds of this show. I'm so grateful so much for you for sharing all this, for coming back every week. And I'm actually sad that this segment is coming over with. Folks, the next segment that I do on this evening is going to be with Yuri and Plesman. He'll be coming on in just a few minutes at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time to share his side of dealing with PTSD from a hypoglycemic diet. But Pam, it has been a pleasure to have you here, and I know this is not the last time we'll be speaking, either in person or on the air, because most likely I'm going to have you back just to clarify things after I do that woohoo coffee enema, among other things. So I thank you so much, and is there anything you'd like to say to the troops overseas or to anybody?
I just want to tell everybody that there's always going to be hope, that if you're living in a state of anxiety, fatigue, depression, sleep disorder, obsessive compulsive behaviors, there's a way out, that this is not a permanent feeling, and that you can come out of it. It does take work and dedication, but you're not going to do the work and dedication if you think this is a life sentence. It's not a life sentence.
Well, thank you so much for being here. And folks, this is Nicole Johnson-Starr with the PTSD Retreat Radio Talk Show. We're in the series The Six Senses of PTSD, coming to the end of taste and food, how it affects your PTSD. We're going to go over to our next segment after a 15-minute break, and I thank you guys so much for being here. If you'd like to weigh in on this, pass us your comments, you can go to our Facebook page, the PTSD Retreat. You can go to our website, which is www.theptsdretreat.org. You can also go to, you can talk to me via Skype, same name, the PTSD Retreat, and also send us an email at support@theptsdretreat.org. So that's support@theptsdretreat.org. And I thank you guys so much for listening. This is Nicole Johnson-Starr with the PTSD Retreat Radio Talk Show. Good night, all.